Welcome to Foundstone Conversations, a series where we chat with industry leaders about what they're seeing across business strategy, connecting with customers, and sharing their real-world lived experiences from across their own career. And today we're joined by the Executive Director of Social Traders and the former CEO of Latrobe Valley Enterprises. Welcome, Wendy Bezzina.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks for having me.
It's great to see you again. We had a conversation that feels like a lifetime ago now, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does feel like quite a while ago.
Especially what the last 2 years have brought. It'd be great to hear, perhaps just to start for our audience, a bit of context of your previous role as a CEO of Latrobe Valley Enterprises, which is a social enterprise itself in Gippsland. And really just how has the move been and perhaps, the context of moving now as to the Exec Director of Social Traders?
Yeah, thanks for that. So initially, back in previous roles I've lived in Gippsland for my whole life and initially had a lot of exposure to people in marginalised groups through supporting them with my husband, because his side gig other than his power station role was being a professional clown. So he worked regularly with Down Syndrome Victoria, various special kids, Interchange Gippsland and our local specialist schools. And so when the position came up at LVE initially, it for me was just the perfect opportunity for me to align my passion and my skills and my purpose. And LVE, as you said, is a social enterprise and it currently employs over 80 people with disabilities. And being the CEO there, I was really fortunate enough to lead the organisation and really drive significant change and growth over my time there, including, significant capital improvements, additional jobs over that time, and then expanding our services and product offerings. So having been at LVE for almost 5 years, it really felt like it was time to expand my skills. And I always like jumping back in the deep end and sink or swim again. So I thought, where can I do what I love, but expand that and do it a bit more broadly? So the opportunity came up at Social Traders, and it really just went from looking after one social enterprise to now we have over 400 social enterprises across Australia. So it just felt like the same thing, but I get to do it on a grander scale and I get to create impact far more broadly. And then working to influence sort of the business and government members or, potential members to really embed social enterprise procurement into their supply chains as well and help create that economic empowerment for social enterprises, create, safer, fairer and a more sustainable future for everyone here in Australia. So for me, it was just this grand dream to pull all of what I love together.
Yeah, beautiful. That makes perfect sense, because I know in our last conversation, you took us through some of the examples that how you grew LVE, some pretty substantial contracts, partnerships with some of the largest road operators in the country. And I think myself and our audience learned from that. And I think seeing your move to social traders to have influence across so many more, I think is huge for the industry. In our eyes, and as you know, it's one of the fastest growing industries across Australia. And I think having someone that has been and lived in a CEO role within an organisation that's actually doing it, I think is hugely powerful. So it's great to see you leading the role there at Social Traders. I want to take a bit of just a step back. There's still quite a lot of people, both leadership in commercial organisations, government and not-for-profit, that still probably aren't really that in tune with what the basics or the foundations of what social enterprise is and what it actually means. Can we go back to a bit of basics and can you just describe, in essence, what it means in your experience to both organisations that are social enterprises, but then other commercial organisations that can partner with those organisations?
Yeah, so social enterprises are really just an innovative sort of style breed of business, and they exist to create a fairer, more sustainable world, but they have really three key things that they do, and they have they're driven by their purpose, and they have a really defined primary social, cultural or environmental purpose. And that's, consistent with a public or community benefit. They're also, they are income focused, so they derive a substantial proportion of their income from trade. So, they exist to trade and earn revenue. And then they reinvest those dollars and resources into their purpose every day. So the purpose or the benefit of their organisation, the community benefit, really outweighs any private benefit. So it's really reinvesting back into that, ecosystem of its own organisation. So it's really quite unique. And certified social enterprises is another sort of step on that. So Social Traders obviously certifies within Australia. We're the only certifying body in Australia. So they can undertake certification, and the model itself is really quite, it's got some rigour to it and integrity, and it's underpinned by international certification frameworks and then supported through collaboration on the model in Australia by the likes of Minter Elliston and Ernst Young. So it's really a substantial and, rigorous certification. We also have an independent advisory board as well to help us, navigate the agile, changing environment of social enterprises, that there's new models evolving all the time. And then certification is really just to show others. It becomes sort of a badge that those social enterprises can wear to demonstrate that they really exist to create social impact through trade. So it's just, it signifies who they are and what they do.
I see. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you explaining that, because it is, like you mentioned there, those three pillars, and then you outline in terms of, these organisations are still income focused and they're reinvesting back into the community. Because I think, with the perhaps a bit of turmoil over the last couple of years, and then the social implications, it seems like it is even more relevant to us going forward. In terms of when we look at, I was reading the State of Social Procurement for Australia and New Zealand report recently, and it mentioned there 78% of participants believed that social enterprise contributes to organisations both their reputation and also their competitive advantage. It'd be good just to hear a bit around that, because I think we hear a lot about social enterprise in terms of the social benefit and the good, and that is obviously ultimately important. But for those commercial organisations that perhaps don't know that much about it and want to start dipping their toe in the water, can you talk to us a bit about reputation and that competitive advantage perspective?
Yeah, so there is significant growth across the sector, across all elements of the ecosystem, whether it's the social enterprises themselves or the support services around them that are supporting those social enterprises to build their capacity and capability. And what we're sort of really seeing now is there's a significant focus on sustainable and social procurement strategies in a lot of organisations. And that's also coming through in the current generation. So the current generation coming forward really have the right coloured glasses on, I would say, and they really have ethical sort of beliefs and values, and it's so nice to see. But it's becoming an expectation now that social and environmental outcomes will be considered in any decision about the future. And the good news is that that's gaining traction, and these consumer-driven sort of ethical choices and also organisational ambitions are really helping to improve the reputation, to drive policy decisions through state, federal government. It's also falling into funding requirements, so it's really starting to embed itself. And so there's the financial impacts for you. If you want to win work, you've got to do the social procurement outcomes. It's also great for your reputation as a business, because, you're talking to the new generations, but you're also, then providing a leg up or sustainable and viable outcomes for a social enterprise. So that's generally the most marginalised people in our country. So it's really great to see. And for social traders, our mission is really to, make social procurement the norm and really embed it into all the supply chains throughout Australia, so that it just becomes just part of what you do every day. So it's really, key for businesses just to really commit and start doing it, because I think they're really going to be left behind.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it, and it's good to hear it that direct, because, like you said, it seems like the state and federal governments now are on board. The billions of spend they have through broader taxes, they're on board, and now it seems like it is really starting to get actual genuine traction within large commercial operators. I know large infrastructure providers, road operators, they're probably the ones that I'm familiar with. So it feels like it is really starting to get traction in that commercial space, which is encouraging.
Yeah, so it's really, as I said, getting them to sort of make that commitment initially and to start looking at purchasing their goods and services. So if once they gain an understanding of what social procurement is, they tend to understand the impact of that, and they're more driven to dip their toe in the water, as you say. So it's really, and for us, it's not about spending extra money or doing things really that differently. Social enterprise procurement is about shifting your spend. So if you're already spending with a cleaning service or a catering service or a grounds maintenance service, it's just shifting that to spend with a social enterprise. So, and if everybody shifted even 1% of the spend that's happening across the country, I think if you look at sort of New South Wales government, is over $600 million is spent just in the government. So it's really about where's that money spent and can you just shift that spend. So if they can commit to it, they can come and speak to social traders. We really do walk them through opportunities to attend education sessions, and then have opportunity planning sessions, and for us to actually walk them through, train their organisations, and really demonstrate what the impact that social enterprise procurement can have, and get them putting it and embedding it in their social supply chains.
I see. So it's embedding it within the system, like you say. It sounds like it's also a cultural mindset that people need to get their head around, and it doesn't happen overnight, but it sounds like it's heading in the right direction, which is awesome.
Yeah.
In terms of some of the examples, I know I've heard you talk about when you were CEO of LVE, the example with Downer DM Road. So it's a significant infrastructure provider, and the contract that was a win-win for both LVE and then DM Roads at the time. Is there any ones that come to mind, perhaps more recent ones, or examples from your time as CEO that would probably help paint a bit of a picture to our audience of what is possible?
Yeah, I think, and I like to, COVID's obviously impacted that, but I really love to go out and visit the social enterprises. So you really sort of see what's on the ground, what's the stories, and what's the impact that's being created by business and government buying with social enterprises. So, a few stories that come off the top of my mind. I just visited OC Connections the other day, and they are looking to, develop, and developing. They've literally got it all ready to go, but doing recycled orange cones, the road traffic safety cones and things like that. So really those bollards, getting those, destroyed ones back in, shredding them, recycling them back into a new product. So it's business and government engaging with an organisation like a social enterprise can also stem innovation and create, that these guys are creating a product that not only has social value outcomes, it's going to save a lot of plastic going into landfill. It's creating a circular economy for those things, and it's creating value and an Australian manufactured product, that's locally made. So it's just all those little wins. If the business and government really do partner well and support those organisations, like what happened with DM Roads and LVE, it becomes a success story. Downer and DM Roads and LVE was really around, starting up traffic signs. But once that quality product got, tailored down and got perfect, then LVE was able to go out and now works with pretty much every single tier 1 company across Australia producing traffic signs. Like, it's those kind of impacts, and that creates sustainable and viable outcomes for the organisations to add jobs, but create sustainable organisations that can continue to provide these amazing services that they already do.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Those three, I've jotted them down in terms of, it's creating innovation, it's driving the circular economy and local manufacturing. I mean, those three in itself are enormous, aren't they?
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And then creating jobs. So with OC Connections, that's a great example. Love the concept of the recycled orange cones. Can you give us a bit more detail? Perhaps would they have been sourcing them off another supplier? It could have been overseas, and they've looked at how to do this better, more local based.
Yeah, so it's been a project for OC Connections and Steve Batinsky really for the past 2 years. So he's been working on it, knows absolutely everything about bollards there is to know. So it's really around, a lot of the traffic management groups, they're all importing them from China. So everything's imported into Australia, but then they're all going into landfill because, there is no recycled product. And so it was just a niche market that they saw that there's an opportunity in the market, and you go and partner with and talk to the right organisations that can support you, whether that's, major roads and traffic organisations or traffic management organisations as well, or government departments. It's really about having a bit of an idea and knowing that your organisation has the capability to expand or, shift and pivot, for a better word, and really, deliver something that's so innovative, and everyone's probably going to sit back and go, why didn't we think of that? But it's just so innovative, but I just love that it's got the environmental and the social outcomes on it as well. I just think that they're just significant key things that, and as you say, manufacturing on site in Australia is just amazing to be ticking all those boxes. It's give them a reason why you shouldn't be buying from them rather than why should you? It's a no-brainer.
Yeah, definitely. And I think creating those jobs and for jobs for the right people in society that need them the most is also a huge thing. In terms of industries that are, you've talked through, OC Connections in terms of, roads and kind of leading into construction perhaps. Are there any particular industries that are at the forefront? It seems like construction and infrastructure are certainly a couple of big ones. Are there ones that are growing or on the horizon that some of our listeners can actually kind of lean into and say, well, there could be an opportunity there to go and explore a bit further?
Yeah, I think like the sector in Australia is actually really quite diverse. So there's everything from training, education, there's community and social services, horticulture, catering, hospitality, business administration, cleaning. There's so many different, and, construction's actually, like, whilst it's generally big money, it's actually a small proportion of the spend often. So because it's project based, but it's things like, cleaning organisations and those sort of things have the ability to really, think a bit differently. And even at LVE, we were doing a little bit of office cleaning, but we then sort of looked at the local caravan park was coming up for tender. And so we sort of thought, well, that takes the cleaning and the grounds maintenance crew can come together and look after that caravan park. So hired just a worker to do the park management, and then had to train the staff in how to make beds and clean bathrooms and those sort of things. But it became a significant opportunity for them to learn brand new skills, to be out in the community, but for us to also have additional staff. And so now LVE is running a caravan park. Like, you wouldn't think about those kind of things, but there's little opportunities where the local hospital owns the caravan park. So they wanted to work with us because they already work with us on grounds. And it was really about just giving us that opportunity to try and innovate to make it work. So it's really those organisations that can see the outcome first. What's the purpose? The purpose is to, support these organisations. If they can see that, then they're on board and they'll work with those organisations. OC Connections, I've seen just recently, Brunswick Industries as well. They're working with Costco and those kind of organisations where they're packaging goods and doing things like that. So really big things. So it's really great to see organisations getting on board and supporting those organisations, like social enterprises, to really build their capacity and their skill and become more sustainable.
I see. Yeah, brilliant. It's great examples. In terms of, if I've got it right, I was reading a bit there in terms of Vision 2030, and if I've got it right, is that, let's say, a social traders initiative of what's on the horizon the next 8 or so years? It's not too far away now, really, is it?
Yeah.
If I've got it right, I saw numbers there like creating 5 billion plus spend, 40,000 jobs. Is that what you're seeing in 2030, that kind of growth?
Yes, our vision really to create this thriving social enterprise sector that really contributes to more inclusive, equitable Australia. And our audacious goal, 2 years ago, was really to have a future direction that focuses on unlocking the power of social enterprise procurement, but that aims to further, create further significant impact and social and environmental outcomes while creating those jobs and the training opportunities, and then strengthening the learning across the sector as well, not only in the social enterprises, but also in business and government. So yes, the vision 10-year plan, it was. Yes, we're already 2 years into it, which just feels amazing. But it's really, unlocking, as you say, that 5 billion jobs, 5 billion in demand, and then all the jobs and charitable donations, training hours, 6 million training hours, like all of that, we're really seeing that will come to fruition. So just in the last few years, we've seen sort of 122 million spend. So it's really, really, really growing. So, and we're not capturing, all of the data around Australia. So there will be a lot of organisations, we're only capturing the data that, if they're members with us, then we're capturing their data, but there'll be a lot going on that we just aren't capturing. So it's really great to see that significant growth. And for us, it's really that long-term vision and where do we see ourselves in 10 years.
I see, yeah, makes good sense. And in terms of actually becoming certified, we've got a number of customers that have recently been certified through yourselves, and others thinking about it. Is there kind of a quick kind of summary of what that actually means? What is the rough approach and process, and then what it actually means of being part of that broader community?
I guess it really is that sort of stamp of approval that you are truly providing social outcomes. So it's the integrity behind it that just demonstrates to anyone out there that you are true and right for purpose. I think one of the concerns at the moment is obviously the sector is growing really quite quickly. And what we're already seeing happening is normal private enterprises saying, because that they might miss out on work because the social enterprise gets it, or they're seeing all this money being put into social enterprise development. They're like, I want to become a social enterprise. And so they just sort of come forward and say, well, I can be a social enterprise too. What do I have to do? Hire one person? Or so there's a little bit of what we would normally call in the recycling industry greenwashing. We call it social washing. So the certification system is really, really rigorous. It's an analysis of financials, analysis of true purpose. You've got to demonstrate training and employment, all of those sort of outcomes to really demonstrate the true purpose of the organisation and the true intent. And so it's an assessment of that. And as I said, that's a little bit independent. So we've kept it protected, and we work to certify as many organisations as come forward. But as I say, they have to be true to purpose.
Yeah, well, that's good to hear, because I haven't heard it put that way. Social washing, like greenwashing, like you say. I suppose if that's diluted, it can impact the sector in a negative way. So it's
that's right.
There is those standards. Just from a government point of view, just to kind of just look at the headlines. I've seen, like you mentioned before, there's social enterprise strategies from a number of the major states, and that's now feeding up federally. It sounds like state governments are pretty serious about this. Is there any kind of view on? It seems like Victoria is fairly ahead of the game as such. Are there any states in particular that are doing some innovative things and leading the way?
Yeah, so absolutely, Victoria has led the way for quite a number of years. They launched, their social procurement strategy and the social procurement framework a number of years ago, and that's really led the way building and sustaining the social enterprise ecosystem. And that's evidenced by the number of social enterprises in Victoria as compared to other states. So currently, of the over 400 certified social enterprises we have, 51% are in Victoria. The next closest is 25% in New South Wales and 14% in Queensland, followed by less than 5% in the other states. So, but at a government level, Queensland's definitely starting to drive the social ecosystem in their state. So they're really investing significant funds to support the sector, and they're really embedding social procurement requirements into policy and contracts. So they're working really quite closely with us at the moment, and we were obviously lucky enough to get some announced funding as well. So we're really embedding ourselves in Queensland government, working in partnership with them to really build that system at the moment. New South Wales, however, are also in talks with us, and they're starting to build their system as well. They've committed to, their Western Sydney Airport. They're really wanting to get a social ecosystem developed and really promote sort of local business and social outcomes for those major projects. So the other states are definitely getting on board. And as I say, Victoria really led the way. But it's shown that once government gets on board and puts the policy and embeds, requirements into contracts and major projects, is the ecosystem just develops exponentially. Like it just develops in behind it because there's so many opportunities. And this is the thing, I guess, with social enterprise is they don't want one or two little projects or jobs. They want something sustainable. So they want a 3-year contract for cleaning, not come and do this job for this event. That's not sustainable for them and it makes it hard for them to flex up and then flex back down if they don't have anything sustainable. So it really is about, organisations and governments committing to the social procurement outcomes, because it really is about, those that are the most marginalised in our communities, and it's about supporting those people in ways that give them independence and standing in their communities and, financial viability. It's outcomes that needs to happen, and we need to all be doing it for all of Australia.
Well, yeah, what you've described there, I think it paints a picture to me that some of the biggest challenges of society, and perhaps some or many of the government are having issues trying to solve for some political reasons, some other reasons. You look at, disability services, aged care, just to name a couple. So it sounds like that the sector is directly addressing some of these really big issues. You're not waiting for government to respond and through the political cycles. You're really getting on with and helping solve the grassroots problems here and now, which is pretty interesting.
And as our mission is, it's really embedded in the supply chain. So once we get it really embedded, whether it's in a government supply chain or a private enterprise supply chain, once it gets embedded, it's in there and it's sustainable. So that way, then it doesn't matter, as you say, who's in political power at the time. There's no policy change that's going to change that. So it's really we're in it for the long haul. It really is that 10-year plan to get it embedded and make buying from social enterprises just the norm.
Yeah, I see. That's a good example. And in terms of the people that are driving, in terms of procuring and partnering with social enterprises within the big corporations, is there a typical trend there? Is it both, executive teams? Is it people and culture, sustainability teams, or procurement teams that you see generally driving this, or is it a mix across the board depending on the organisation?
Really depends on the organisational size. So in the smaller organisations, as you find, the admin person does absolutely everything. You might find, say, the finance person is doing procurement and purchasing and invoicing and doing all of it. So they might do the whole function. In slightly larger organisations, you might find the head of a department doing it. But what we often find in the really big organisations is that they will employ someone purely for social procurement and sustainability. So it's great to see them invest in that. However, what we often find is that person is a little bit lonely within their organisations. And one of the things that we do at Social Traders, and we're starting up basically a champions program, is to gather those amazing gold nuggets out in all those organisations together to create a support network for them as well. Because what we're finding is they've already drunk the Kool-Aid. They get it, they've bought in, they love it, and they want to do more. It's convincing either higher levels up or others within the organisation to do it. And Marty, you mentioned it, Downer Group before. He's an absolute champion. So he will not let anyone purchase anything if they haven't considered social procurement. So, and they will come to him now and they go, yes, I've already considered social procurement. Can you approve this? So he's getting it embedded in his organisation, but that's taken him years to do that. And there's often, especially in the construction industry, because it's project-based, those staff members are changing all the time. And that was one challenge I found at LVE, was staying in contact with who the right procurement person is, because they were all moving companies constantly and constantly, coming in for 12 months and then they're gone, and you've got to rebuild all those relationships again. So, and again, that comes back to, you've got to embed it in the supply chain, because it can't be reliant on just one person within an organisation. They might love it and they're all up in social procurement and want to drive it through their organisations, but what happens when they leave? Who's driving it?
Makes perfect sense. And I think that it sounds like you're, recognising those people who are actually driving it. It sounds like you've got specific programs to do that, because that's probably what we're seeing as well, that there are certain people, perhaps in certain departments and functions, that are really in tune with this, but they're needing and wanting more support as such. So it sounds like you're seeing that as well, which is going to have a big impact.
Yeah, and we've tiered our membership packages and those sort of things, so people can enter at different levels. They can come in and have sort of access to our portals and access to our training, or they can go on a bit more of a journey and actually, really have opportunity planning sessions where we can plan everything that they might do for the next 12 months and actually support them through that. Then they can also have a bespoke model where we go into a real leadership, where we're working with certain organisations to be leaders in social procurement, and we'll actually work on bespoke offerings where they will become part of the Champions program, but they'll also have an opportunity to pilot some things or do something really unique that can then, basically educate others within the sector of how to do it as well. So we really work quite closely. We've got a social procurement services team, and they really work quite closely with our members. And then also we have access to advisory companies as well, and some of that's pro bono for our social enterprises. So we're offering them sort of free education and services through organisations such as, Deloitte's, PwC are offering us pro bono services. We offer that straight back out to our social enterprises. And it's just really about, building the capacity, closing the gap, and making financially sustainable business models for everyone.
Fantastic. I saw what you described there. I saw that firsthand. We were as part of one of your forums with another customer, and a couple of customers in quite different sectors were sharing what they were doing, and there was genuine insights and learnings across these quite different sectors on similar principles. So I know you're doing that right now. I've seen it firsthand, so it's brilliant. Just before we round out, in terms of these conversations, it's always good to hear from you as a leader. I see, you've come from the CEO role, now you're leading from an exec director at Social Traders. For our viewers, they'd like to hear in terms of how people are navigating perhaps the last couple of years, which have been pretty unique, and also what you're seeing in the next, say, 6 to 12 months as a leader of an organisation. Are there any things that is helping you navigate through some of the times we've been through, or in the future? That can be from developing insights or general well-being as a leader. Is there anything that springs to mind that you could share?
Yeah, I think that, the past few years have been challenging for everyone, but what I guess the shining light for me is everyone's sitting back now questioning, what do they really value? You know, do they value a great lifestyle versus having things? Do they value their community versus, you know, just flipping off all over international waters? It's really coming back to values, but I'm really seeing that people are getting re-engaged in their communities. They're, you know, seeing what really matters in life, and it's their family and friends and you know, their local organisations and local businesses. So really seeing what COVID's done is made us a little bit more insular, but I don't see that as a negative thing. I see that as a positive thing. But I guess what has always kept me going is when you work with people with disabilities or, you know, some sort of barrier to employment, when you work with them, they are so amazing. They love life, they're happy to be there, they love feeling a part of something, and they really are engaged in their work every day, and it really does make a difference. And it makes me sort of think, what am I worried about? You know, I've got pressures of emails, 100 emails or something. It's like, really, is that a problem? This person had a problem getting themselves dressed and getting to work today. What am I complaining about? So I think it just gives me that grounding to sort of say, you know, my problems are probably a little bit minor. We just need to let go of things and stop trying to control everything. But, you know, come back to what do you value and what's important to you and what's important to your organisation. So it's really, yeah, it kind of grounds you.
Yeah, well, I think it's an awesome reminder, Wendy, because the question you asked, what do we really value? And I would agree that a lot of people, businesses are kind of looking at more that local footprint as well, which directly aligns to those things you called out earlier, you know, innovation, circular economy, local manufacturing and jobs. It directly or indirectly feeds back into all those. So I think it's brilliant.
Yeah. So that's my grounding every day.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing that. It's much appreciated. Well, thank you, Wendy. It's been brilliant to learn more at a very grassroots level as someone that's been a CEO of a social enterprise and now at an organisation that is connecting and promoting. Where, in terms of our listeners and viewers, in terms of if they want to find you personally or the organisation, learn a bit more about what you're doing, where's best to find you and the organisation?
So if you just go straight onto socialtraders.com.au and you will find, you know, opportunities to look at some social enterprises, but opportunities to look at if you're a business government organisation is really what are the next steps for you. So there's, you know, they can go on, they can download the playbook, which gives them a little bit of background about social enterprises. If they're a social enterprise, they can look at, you know, certification and coming through that inquiry system. So really, if they go to the website, they'll find pretty much everything they need. You know, they can reach out to me personally by email if they want to, wendy.bezzina@socialtraders.com.au. So if they want to do that, more than welcome to, but I really encourage everyone to go to the website and start to get familiar and start to really have a look, see some of the case studies, because you'll see some sort of opportunities to have a look at what's been a successful story, and yeah, then connect with us via the website.
Brilliant. That's awesome. Thank you. Thanks again for sharing both your own personal journey in the organisation and the sector. I know our audience get a huge amount of value from it. So great to see you, Wendy, and look forward to hearing what you do for the rest of the year.
You too. Thanks so much, Andrew.